Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat, Season 1, Episode 14. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off between the conversation between Yanan and Queen about the whole Tien situation, and it's like, right, like, is Xiaomi's cooking really that good? And I love Yanan's response of, basically, it's really, really good, and that's the only reason why I'm putting my feelings about Xiaomi aside and being friends with her. It's just, I love that. Like, that's the only time that character, once again, webtoon or live action wise, is going to put aside their issues and beef with Xiaomi or Dao Dao in the webtoon just for the purposes of her food. So, and Queen kind of, it gives her a lot to think about. So now she's kind of questioning a lot about that, about, like, you know, what are my feelings about Tian? And lo and behold, who does she run into? It's like literally the worst person. She's like, the person I didn't want to run into, and ended up being Zhao Mi, but she's meeting up with Tian and they're talking, and she's immediately thinking, oh my god, she's going to tell him about the whole bunny suit thing, that I know that was him in it now. And it's so interesting because even last episode they talked about it a little bit, her and Yanan, where it's like, would Xiaomi say anything? And it's like, even Yanan was like, I don't think she would, but also she's super unpredictable, so that little crazy person, there's no telling what she would do. In the grand scheme of things, she threatens and uses that against Queen, but she would never actually use it, because it's kind of something her and Hao talked about like last episode, where it's like, she doesn't want to take the chance, neither one of them wants to take a chance that it might actually bring Queen and Tian closer, so you don't want to say anything. So it's actually more like, it shouldn't, because it would be a mutually assured destruction type of thing for Xiaomi. Like, it wouldn't work in her favor. She's, once again, scared, but she knows that if she uses it against Queen, it'll get Queen to back off. But yeah, the entire time Queen's stressing, and especially because Xiaomi's like, it's a secret, don't tell anybody. And even Tian's like, a secret? Like, what's so secretive about it? But it's like, yeah, because she did it on purpose, and she even looks towards Queen. It's like, purposely saw her and was decided, like, oh, I'm going to screw with you so badly. So Queen confronts him and is like, so what were you and Xiaomi talking about? It's like, well, it's kind of nuts. She's like, it wasn't nothing, because obviously she said it was a secret. So, like, what was it? You know, was it about me? And it's like, well, he's like, and he basically like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do. I know what this is about. And he says like, I think it'd be better if you didn't. And Queen was kind of like disheartened by that. But he's like, yeah, like, you guys don't have to chip in with the sneaker thing. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, like, Xiaomi said that you guys were all trying to chip in money to buy me new sneakers, and I'd rather use my own money from my paychecks to do that. And it's like, oh, so that's what that was all about? He's like, yeah, what else would it be about? She's like, nothing. I mean, yes, like, sneakers are very important because obviously the padding can wear out. It's like, so let me see your sneakers. Yeah, time for some new ones. Well, that's about it. Oh, well, gotta go. And obviously Tian's just walking away like, so confused, like, what does she mean? She was lost for words. I'm not getting it. And it's just like the depth stares between, because I love how it just works like this too. Like, obviously you have Xiaomi and Hao on one side of the gym, and on the other side you have Yanan and Queen, and Yanan and Queen are giving Xiaomi the death stare, and she's looking at him and she's being so smug and smiling. It's so cute. Like, she's the cutest devil you'll ever see, because how, like, she loves messing with Queen. But I love how when Tien walks into the room, if you, like I said, he walks directly in the middle of these two different groups, and it's just like this depth stare off between everyone, and Tien's kind of like, what's going on here? So he's kind of leading the call out for the workouts, but he's noticing like everyone's kind of weird. He's like, what's going on here? And at one point he's like, and he literally audibly says, could it be? Literally all four of them turn to him and say, no, it has nothing to do with you. And he's like, what? And just, I love it so much, because it obviously has everything to do with him. It's hilarious. Once again, I think I feel comfortable talking about it here because we are implementing it more here than I think we really did before in the webtoons, like, correlation wise. But I feel like the Queen and Dao Dao, you know, and in this case Queen and Zhao Mi, them heating up is happening, well, not like early, but it's happening. I feel like at least things are intensifying way earlier in the, not way, but earlier in the story than they do in the webtoon. It feels like that. Like, I just don't remember their issues being as, like, like, it's not, it gets like this, like obviously it heats up even more, but them kind of starting that now where it's just kind of like they're irritated, because it is the thing of, it's in this interesting spot where the webtoon touched on it a little bit at this point in the story, but like I said, I've talked about it previously, like it doesn't feel like until the 60% mark is when you really start focusing on that love triangle even more. It's where it feels like, like I said, it was there, it was focused on a little bit, but it was never like the main focus until it gets to like the 60% mark. Then we start leaning into the complications of that situation, because it's like, right, they're perfectly clear about how each other feels. Like, I mean, Queen can't admit how she feels, but I was about to call her Dao Dao. Xiao Mi is 100% clear on how she feels, about Tian. So, kind of puts them in this really interesting and awkward spot. But obviously, this whole situation leads to this thing because we're taking Yanan's advice from last episode, where she was like, right, when you're in the ring with Tian, like, go harder to paint, because you'll be able to do something Xiao Mi can't. Because she's always been super reluctant to go hard in the paint, like go full force with Tian, because like going soft with him, it's like, no, you're going to do a disservice to him. So like Queen going hard in the paint, it could backfire and end up worse, but I think in the long run, it does benefit Tiana, and I think he recognizes that too, because he even recognizes it when he was in the shower. He was like, yeah, like, any person I ever bullied me before, like, they didn't even have 100th of the strength that, like, Queen, when she was throwing out those blows. So he's like, it just gave him the courage to recognize, like, how much stronger he's gotten and how much he'll continue to grow stronger, and it makes him feel more confident. So it didn't backfire. In fact, it did serve the purpose of helping Tian with his, confidence in the long run. But yeah, because she went harder to paint against him, but he was like, again, and he was rushing for it, and Xiao Mi wanted to interfere, but Yanan stopped it, being like, no, like, it isn't just for Queen's benefit, it is also for Tian's benefit as well. Xiao Mi even kind of took it out on Hal and kind of did a powerful kick, because like she was taking out her frustrations about the situation, because like it's like, oh, you're beating up on my Tian, like go softer on him, I love the whole Xiao Mi and Hao thing. That took me by surprise, because I thought they coordinated that. Because she's like, wait, you're going to work, right? He's like, yeah, I am. She's like, at the ice cream place? Okay, go ahead. No, don't wait. Just go ahead. Go straight there. Don't want to be late. And she's like, good. And then Hao popped up and he's like, oh, let me take over your job. I was like, that's weird. I was like, okay, I see what he's planning on doing. He's going to try and be in the suit. But I was like, why would it take both of you to do that? I was like, that was weird. And then it's not until Xiao Mi was there later on at the ice cream shop, I was like, oh my god, you two didn't coordinate. They both attacked this situation separately. She wanted to hurry up and get Tian to work so that she can confront him at work, but not knowing that Hao wanted to switch places with him so that he, like, when Queen shows up, it's like, oh, she talks to Tian here, so it's like, right, and she stops by here frequently enough that if I'm in the bunny suit, maybe, like, we'll even hug or something like that. Especially because, but I mean, it is hard work, because it's like, right, you gotta be in that uncomfortable suit, plus you can't talk either, so, which extremely screws over Hao when Xiao Mi shows up confessing her feelings. I even love the bit of, yeah, like, it started off as an achievement, which is so interesting, because they don't ever really talk about that much in the webtoon. It came up, like, obviously at the beginning of the show, but, like, even the live-action adaptation, but, like, they don't focus on it too much of, like, the whole purpose was, like, part of their grade was to get close to Tian and, in the webtoon Jaegu, but even that's an element that kind of disappears. It's, like, an initial thing of it forced a lot of the girls to get close to him, but it stopped being about that. It just, like, the girls would be like, holy crap, you're, like, the only boy in our class, so, like, we want to get close to you, but he'd kind of avoid him like the play type of situation, except for, like, our trio that he hangs out with the most. So, but she opens with that, like, yeah, it started like that, but I've legitimately fallen for you. And it's like, hey, I like you, do you like me? Oh, I'll take your silence as an answer, which even Hao's like, oh, like, very tricky of you, Xiao Mi, because obviously that anyone wearing a suit can't say anything, but he's also like, I can't let her know it's me under this suit because she's going to kill me. And she tries to, like, chase after him when he's trying to run away, kind of almost he had to keep walking backwards, and eventually he had to reveal himself. It's like, it's me. And she was so upset that like she beat the crap out of him, because like later on he has to, like the next day he's like, yeah, he called in sick. It's like, wow, he's getting sick a lot lately. And then we see him and he's putting ointment on his wounds. I'm like, she beat the ever living crap out of him, and she kind of felt bad for it, like, yikes. But also at the same time, oh well, that's his fault, you know, casualties of war type of situation. I took it as, it's like, poor Hal. I was like, I love that. Once again, just a snafu of just, you didn't coordinate your plans. It was a good plan for both sides. It's just, you should have coordinated that better than you did. So that blew up in their faces. But at the same time that was actually happening, we had the conversation between Yanan and Queen. And it's like, right, just tell Tian like how you actually feel. But you know, her point of view is, well, what's the point of telling him how I feel? Because obviously he doesn't like me, so that's why she thinks it's a moot point. But it's like, wait, did he say he doesn't like you? She's like, I guess so. It's like, well, no, it's yes or no. And it's like, I don't, you know, she's scared, you know, but it's like, no, you're not scared of Tian knowing how you feel, you know. You're scared of how he feels about you. That's what it really comes down to. You're afraid of like how it's going to make you feel if he rejects you. And it's like, that's just the way it is. And she even compares it to combat, where it's like, right, you are all like, she's like, I don't like Zhao Mi, but I have to give her credit for her being courageous. Regardless of whether her and Tien like get together, she at least put it out there in the open how she feels. And yeah, I call her a flirt and all that, but she wears her heart on her sleeve, and she knows what she wants, and she gets after it. And that's something to be applauded, regardless of her personality and every other aspect of her that shouldn't be. That's not what Yanan says, but it's kind of heavily implied. But it's like, Queen's just so scared of being rejected by him. And even Yanan's like, maybe he likes you, maybe he doesn't. But you're just like you're twisting yourself up in the knot in this like middle ground right now if you don't figure this out. You have to get an answer one way or another. It's all about, you're afraid of not being able to face him if he does reject you. I think what also like is the kick in the teeth for Queen, it didn't get brought up in that conversation of, but what if he does like you, you know? I mean, it's kind of both ways, but it's really like like you're so scared of rejection that you're afraid to take that leap. But it's like, yeah, just tell him how you feel, and whatever comes, it is what it is. You just kind of have to accept it as it is. You know, it's like, you are someone who can be brave in every other aspect of your life except when it comes to romance, because she's that afraid. Like, obviously, it means a lot to you that, like, he means a lot to you, and I get it. Like, you just don't want to be rejected because, once again, she's also got trauma associated with being rejected in a worse way. So I think a lot of that is influencing her approach to Tian of like, I'm afraid to like put my heart out there again because I don't want to get stomped on and literally be pointed at and called a freak, which that's already to be fair, you're kind of already past that point because, you know, you had that issue, but Tian's like apologized and recognizes how much of a trigger that was for you. So they've kind of already gotten past that point, but it is a thing of, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like, even in a match, even if you lost, what's the worst thing that could happen? You'd lose, you know, but you move on, you know? So it's like, if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. You'll find your way forward. So, you know, it's not the end of the world, even though it kind of could feel like that. So I just thought that was pretty neat. And I really love that conversation. It's a conversation that Queen needed to hear. So when the time comes, it's like the next day and they're trading and stuff, and Queen is like outside, like pacing back and forth, trying to try it out. She's like, okay, Tien. She's like, I might be a bit interested in you. She tried to like handle it like a very cold perspective. Did she try again? She's like, no. Oh, Tien? Like, yeah, what? Someone told you that I liked you? Yeah, they must be mistaken. But, and then she was like, oh no. She couldn't find the words to say. So, obviously, at the same time, Tien is learning from Zhao Mi and Yanan about, like, okay, so what's going on with the preliminaries? He's in the same bracket as Yi Chen, but the problem is, who's also in that same bracket, Guanyan, and it's like, yeah, out of anyone in that bracket, he's most likely to go to the finals. So it's like, okay, and this is where Tien learns like some of the things because these are elements that don't actually come up. These conversations don't actually come up until the actual tournament in the webtoon, where you learn of like, it's like right when because the preliminaries are still around the corner. It's not until like the actual tournament starts that you get to hear some of these elements of, yeah, like the reason why the the tournament can be held in like one day, like I don't think it's all the preliminaries. I think it's some of them. If I remember correctly, I think it takes place over like 2 days, the preliminaries. But yeah, the reason why is because most people drop out because it's like, yeah, like some of the tough opponents, and it's not just a physical game, it is also psychological, because if you're out there like ripping through people, it makes other opponents go like, nah, we're gonna bail out. For example, like one of Queen's early tournaments, she like mopped the floor of people, and like 60% of the competition dropped out immediately just because of her display. So, and she's also like took down some very tough opponents in a matter of seconds. So, and that was made Tien go like, oh, maybe I should, like, I think it was Yana was like, oh, why don't you get some advice from Queen about all this? And he runs off the track down Queen, and Yanan holds Zhao Mi back, and the two of them duke it out, which makes me wonder about something with the tournament. But I'm like, that wasn't an official match, so I think that could still happen. But regardless, we'll talk about it if it comes up, if and when it comes up. But the thing I was kind of worried about was like Tien was going to approach her while she's, saying stuff, and she'll say something that will kind of upset him. But it's like, no, he asked her for advice, and she talks about it just being about willpower. It's like, right, just go into the match having the mindset of I'm going to do everything I can and I won't lose. That's like knowing how to fight is one thing, but a very key thing to keep in mind, because she even says like, there are people more proficient at fighting than I am, but the thing is, no one is more determined than I am, and that's what like gives me the edge in a fight, like having that strength to keep going. So, and the willpower to be like, no, I'm not going to lose. So, with that, she was trying to muster up the courage to say it, but she still couldn't, and ran away immediately. So she went home later on, tries to test out some more cooking, but the problem is it didn't work out. And so she ends up talking to her brother Zhao, who's eating stuff from Mama. It is just Mama Hao. They said Mama Hao, but I would assume it'd be like Mama Son, but which made me immediately think of brother son, which one's gonna kind of bomb that got canceled. But either way, tensions and all that aside. But yeah, like at Hao's mom's place. And it was interesting, like the advice Zhao had given her, because she's like, I can't make anything good. It just doesn't make sense to me, like why I haven't been able to cook. And Zhao gave her some great advice of, yeah, it's like martial arts. Like you don't just like, you're trying to be a jack of all trades immediately. What it will help is focus on one. You start off like boxing or taekwondo, and then you go to other stuff. She's so busy trying to do multiple dishes at once, trying to make a 4-course meal. It's like, no. I mean, especially because Zhao Mi's in a different circumstance. You're trying to like go to 0 to 60 quickly. Once again, he even said like, yeah, you're trying to learn a lot in a short amount of time. Zhao Mi's like had years of practice of watching her mom like cook. Like you're trying to do like squeeze in like what she got out of years of experience. You're trying to squeeze down in a matter of hours to cook all these meals. But it's like, no, like focus on one thing. And that advice, like she ends up calling Hao for a favor, and she shows up and has him teach her how to make chow mein. So I thought that was neat. And obviously both of them are pulling different things in their mind. She's focused on like, right, obviously she's putting a little love and passion behind it because she wants to make this for Tien, whereas Hao is fantasizing about her feeding it to him. Once again, I guess I go back and forth of like, wow, I guess, because I guess sometimes I underestimated how the way that Hao feels about Queen. I think I underestimated, because I always, like I said, I still do to some extent feel like Zhao Mi's way more about Tien than Hao is about Queen, but it's still there. Like she is the only person, like, yeah, he's kind of like, he talked about other girls, but like Queen is the only one he's like actively pursued, because he does really like her. He's liked her ever since she like tossed him, and he's just been like smitten ever since. So he's waiting for his opportunity. And I think this is kind of poetic, where she was sweating and he's like, oh, let me get that for you. And she's like, no, I got it. She let Tien wipe off the powder from when they did that like competition for the hot dogs. She let him do that, but wouldn't let Hao. Like, once again, I think that speaks volumes. I wonder on some level whether she did that consciously, subconsciously, or was that on purpose, where it's just kind of like, no, this is something me and Tien shares, especially because that was something she was just thinking about. So it almost feels like, no, you do it. I don't want you to do it. Like Tien can do it, but not you. It almost felt like that, which I think like that's why I'm like, I don't know if she did that subconsciously or was that like a very conscious choice. But obviously, like making the meal, she's still working at it and learning. So when it's time for her and Tien to get into the ring again for training, she's like, pointing out like, okay, block like this, or make sure you block this particular spot because that's your weakest spot because like there's less muscle there. And Tien even like throws a punch at her and it's like, oh, like, training's going well. But he's like, oh, let's go to the dining hall to eat. And she's like, no, I got to go home. But he notices her hands covered in bandages and she immediately bounces. And so it's like, yeah, she's going back to continue practicing, her attempts at cooking. So I thought that was cute. My problem is, I think what's going to be sad is that probably Tien is probably going to find her at Hal's place and probably read too much into it. That could be a possibility. That's what I was worried about. But then we got to like, I don't know if it was later that day or maybe this next day. I'd assume maybe it's just later that day that Tien, we see him like, moving the big like truck wheel or the big wheel, like, that we see some students doing from time to time, like flipping it down that path, and that's kind of where the episode ends. But some very, very, very interesting developments. I'm curious to see. I keep saying it every episode. I'm like, oh, is this going to be the tournament episode? Is this going to be the tournament episode? I'd assume that's going to last at least 2 or 3 episodes. Once again, like even in the webtoon, not every match was showcased. Like some were like done in like a panel or two. There are some very specific matches that run multiple chapters, but for the most part, like obviously you're not focusing on every single match. Even like the final situation. I'm curious to see how they handle the finals in this because of how that plays out in the webtoon. I mean, that there's an element to that could still pop up storyline-wise, but once again, that's the thing of like, I'm so curious to see what story beats and elements will they adapt, what characters they won't admit, and like how, because like there's some characters once again that pop up because of the tournament that become like smaller recurring characters throughout the rest of the webtoon, and I'm curious, are we going to get them or not? Like I said, some characters are filling multiple roles, and so we'll ultimately have to wait to see. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.